Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Pakistan, and all my viewers around the world. This is Heather Mehdi with my program, Heather Mehdi's Perspectives, on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. Today, I have a very interesting guest, Dr. Jeffrey Guterman. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Jeff is somebody I kind of just discovered when I saw a tweet that Jeff had made on my recent interview with Professor Noam Chomsky. But before we go into that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Guterman. Dr. Jeffrey Guterman is a mental health professional, and I think we need a lot of that help in Pakistan, especially at the leadership level in Pakistan. He's a leading figure in this industry. He's now retired, lives in Fort Lauderdale, has been an active practitioner for several decades. So, Jeff, again, welcome to the program, and thank you so much
for having me. It's my pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, the reason Jeff is here is I noticed a tweet from Jeff in which he commented on my interview with Professor Noam Chomsky, and it was a very detailed response to that interview. So I was intrigued. So I read a little bit about himself. And what emerged, not just about Jeff and people like him, but others like him as well, who have started taking a really more than a keen interest in Pakistan as to what's going on there and the fascism that's happening and the human rights violation, and we're kind of entering into a pre-Burma, pre-North Korea type of fascism in Pakistan. So I thought it'd be better to get Jeff and seek his views. So, Jeff, what prompted you to seek out that interview that I did with Professor Noam Chomsky and your interest in Pakistan?
At the time when I found your interview, I had been following the current events in Pakistan just for a few days. I'm a huge fan of Noam Chomsky. And I was fascinated by his response, and I've adopted it. My story actually began before it started. About a year and a half ago, I started interacting with people on Twitter Spaces. I don't know if you're familiar with that medium.
Yes.
It's an audio program. And I went to many international spaces because I'm interested in learning about other cultures, other countries, and I resonated to the spaces being run by Nigerians, and in particular, those who support Peter Obi, the candidate for the Labour Party. And some of them started going to my spaces, and I really liked them a lot. And then I started to look closely at the presidential race between Obi, Atiku, and Tinubu, who was inaugurated today. And I reviewed the three candidates, and it only took me about 15 minutes to realize that Peter Obi was the only choice. He was the only candidate who stood for democracy, basic human rights, the foundational premises of human rights. And now I'm involved with Pakistan. And how did that happen? Well, I just want to mention something to you. Reflexivity, the process where we turn back and think about something in the past, something we've thought about. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for me now to turn back and think about how I viewed Pakistan, say a year ago. But what I do recall is that I kept up with it minimally and came to the conclusion that Khan is the only leader that I see in Pakistan who is honest and stands for democracy and human rights. So that was that. But about a week ago, the news started seeping in to me about the violence, the military takeover, Sharif, and his what looks to me like a police state now. And I decided in an instant, this was about 5 days ago,
Amazing.
to get involved. And I have to tell you, the reception from the Pakistanis, for the most part, is wonderful. Wonderful.
Really interesting, Jeff, that you got involved, 5 days ago, and you found that Imran Khan is the only honest person, stands for democracy fundamental. So how did you discover that, if you may?
Media, news articles. That's about it, from reputable sources. What concerns me very much right now is something that Dr. Chomsky brought up in his interview with you, is that it seems that the only way for the international community to get involved on some level is through the hard work of bringing this to the attention of the international community, elected officials, human rights organizations, and so forth. And that's really what it takes. It got to me, if I could become alarmed by this again, it's just about 5 days ago, then I think others can too. And that's my hope. I've started writing to human rights organizations, to media organizations, even though the top media, they're not even going to look at what I send to them. But so I'm starting just a notch below, like Democracy Now!, Intercept, things like that. What concerns me is that we may look back, say, a year from now, 2 years from now, and then the media will be involved, because this cannot be sustained.
Jeff, I don't know if you've ever thought on the lines of the fact that we're a nuclear-armed country.
Yes.
We're 240.
About that many times.
We're a nuclear-armed country. We're 240 million people. 65% of the population is under the age of 30. There's a massive population bulge. The current military-dominated or military-backed government in Pakistan is dominated by two political parties, the Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League of the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, have ruled this country for the last 30 years and have had the most corrupt history of loot and plunder. I mean, if you wanted to see a classic kleptocrat and a plutocrat, you have to look at Pakistan and these two political parties. They are now backed by an extremely irrational, out of control army chief. A few days ago or a week ago, he was addressing police officers of a province, the largest province of Punjab, and he was literally foaming at the mouth. The gentleman who told me about the speech said, I was sitting very close to where he was. He was spitting, he was foaming, he was raging. I said, that is so dangerous for such an emotionally, you would understand that, such an emotionally unstable person having his hand on the nuclear button, commanding a military force of 650,000 people. How do you see that situation as a mental health practitioner, professional?
My mentor, when I was in the field of counseling, my mentor was Albert Ellis. I don't know if you know of him. He died. He died about 20 years ago.
Yes,
and we were very close. And he wrote an article on fanaticism and nuclear holocaust. Wow. And his thesis, and you can Google it and find it. His thesis was that he's surprised that there hasn't been a nuclear attack since the U.S. did Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And fanaticism, dogmatism, absolutistic thinking is probably the most dangerous factor that could contribute to these weapons being used. So I'm very concerned about it. I'm very worried. Who's in control of the nukes, and are we safe?
So it's so interesting that you talk about this fanaticism, because fanaticism doesn't necessarily have to be religious or political. It could be of any form, shape.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fanaticism takes the form of thinking in terms of absolutes, demandingness, commandingness, black and white thinking, my country right or wrong. And I always like to quote Bertrand Russell, the great philosopher, who said, "I would never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong."
Amazing.
So yes, you're exactly right. Fanaticism is not necessarily based on religion, even though it often is, and it's one of the main types. But other types include political fanaticism, secular political fanaticism, and just everyday fanaticism.
Yes.
And that's largely how human beings disturb themselves, through their absolutism, their demandingness that situations and people must not be the way they invariably are.
So Jeff, when you said you started, but thank you for that, because that puts something in such a clear perspective, certainly for myself, and I hope for our viewers as well. Because when you said this absolutism, this black and white, this starkness between my way or the highway, this is so dangerous. And this is the kind of thing we're seeing in Pakistan, especially coming out of the army chief. His name is Asim Munir. Munir. He's a crazy nut. He's absolutely crazy. He has this little thing in his mind in which he believes that if he cracks down on Pakistan hard enough and harshly enough, there is this small group of people who are the troublemakers. The rest of the country loves the Pakistan army. Contrary to his belief, the vast majority of the country today sees the Pakistan army as its most hated institution, and it used to be the most beloved institution just hardly a couple of years back. And I'm an ex-army person myself, and I have defended this army for decades.
Right. Well, that's very educated from me. I'm learning it just from this conversation we're having. I don't know at this point the extent to which Khan is supported, or the military is supported, the current prime minister is supported. You say it's the majority, and that's.
So I'll give you an illustration. In countries like Pakistan, the incumbent political party in power generally exercises massive influence over the executive and the judiciary and the parliament. Unlike
wait a minute. You're saying the military?
Yes.
The military imposes a great influence on the other.
The government in power influences has a great influence as well. And now this particular government in power, which was brought in by the military a year ago, after they ousted Imran in what I call is a constitutional coup, by getting his coalition partners to move away. This is now a completely military-backed fascist government, but it has the face of a civilian government, right? There's a prime minister, there's a parliament which is hardly exists. So what I was trying to say is that they exercise a massive executive clout over all state institutions. The reason I explain this context is that when elections are held, by-elections. By-elections are held when an incumbent dies or resigns from his seat, so they have to hold an election to fill that seat, for the Congress or the House of Rep, in your case,
Right.
in Pakistan, the National Assembly or the provincial assemblies. Usually 99% of the time those seats are won by the incumbent party in power, because they exercise so much influence on the election commission processes, and there's a lot of skullduggery, and there's stuffing of ballots, and they win. Despite that history that we have of this kind of manipulation of the election process in a by-election, Imran's party won 30 of the 35 by-elections, despite being out of power, despite all state resources.
I'm sorry, he won 30 out of 35
of the by-elections, we call them by-elections. They are elections made to fill the seats. He won 30 out of the 35. While being in opposition and having the entire state machinery against him, the people just turned out in masses, droves and mass droves, to put him back, knowing that these 30 people they're elected will not go into parliament, because Imran had decided not to sit in parliament, but he still nominated people to fight the elections, so he could tell the world and the Pakistanis that I still have support. So people voted for people they knew would not go to parliament. Can you imagine that? That was the extent of his support. That still is the extent of his support.
Right.
So what we're feeling, Jeff, in Pakistan is that this fascist military crackdown on political dissent may actually turn into civil war. People will pick up guns, and we may have a nuclear armed state in the throes of anarchy and a civil war. Just picture that.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, that's it. So when you said you will be writing to the press and all, is there something more that you can do? There's something I can do to bring this awareness to the communities in the US, to the local press, to the local media?
If anyone listening has contacts with elected officials, with the mass media, the human rights organization, reporters, I think that's what needs to be done. Like Dr. Chomsky said, there's no magic.
There's no magic. Yeah.
I listened very closely to that interview.
Yeah.
And just like in therapy, for change, there is no magic. There's only hard work, persistence, and that's what we need to do. I'm just getting involved. My knowledge is just accumulating, and my hope eventually is that the international community, again, media, elected officials, will get involved. But no, I don't know. I'm sorry to say.
So Jeff, if you have local community leaders that you know of, who you think would be people that one could connect with, who can spread the message, because we really want to spread the message of a free, democratic Pakistan, a Pakistan under rule of law, a Pakistan which has equal opportunities for everybody, young and old, poor and rich. We want a prosperous Pakistan, like everyone, like you guys want a prosperous US, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so we really want this message to get across the entire United States into corridors of power, and there's no magic. It's a lot of hard work. So anyone you can think of who you think will help spread this message, you can do it yourself. You can direct that person to me. I can educate them. I'm in Canada right now on the West Coast. I can travel. I can talk to communities. Do all that stuff.
I will do just that. I've already contacted several senators and Congress members and media organizations, and I will persist, and I will send you some of the emails that I've sent. I've left voicemails. There is some encouraging news, and I just learned this yesterday, is that in the middle of this month, I believe, or early in this month, 65 members of Congress signed a letter.
Yes, that's very encouraging.
Addressed to our Secretary of State, Blinken.
Yes.
Telling him about the totalitarian conditions in Pakistan and asking him to get involved. Another positive, and this is just about 3 days ago, is there's a congresswoman, I believe her last name is Jackson.
Yes.
And she tweeted her concern because she founded the U.S.-Pakistan committee in the House of Representatives. So these are small steps.
But they're important steps.
They are concrete steps. My question is, why is the U.S. State Department not expressing alarmed objection to what's happening in Pakistan?
And why do you think they're not, Jeff?
I can only speculate. I don't want to start conspiracies or anything like that. One thing could be, is it ignorance? But if I know what's going on, at least somewhat, he needs to go on. He needs to know. The same thing with Nigeria. I don't want to cross topics here, but
no, please go ahead.
Bola Tinubu, who was inaugurated today, is an unequivocal drug trafficker.
Yes.
He paid a forfeiture of $460,000 to the Department of Justice back in 1993 for money laundering. And what does Antony Blinken do? He calls up Tinubu and congratulates him. And the election was mired with violence and fraud. We saw people getting knifed. There were murders. There were ballots thrown away on video. You could see it. He sent President Biden sent a delegation of 5 people, and then I heard it was 9, to attend the inauguration. Now, what is that? What is their position on that? On his history? Again,
I think,
is it ignorance, or is it just they don't care that much because they don't have interests in Nigeria or Pakistan like they do with Ukraine and Western Europe? Or is there something more?
I think they do, actually, Jeff. They do a lot. So Nigeria is an oil-producing country. They just want to make sure that the person on top of the Nigerian oil is a person who would listen to them. So they don't want an independent, popular, honest person like Obi to take over. In Pakistan, exactly the same.
Okay. And, similarities between them.
Yes.
I see Obi. I don't know how much you've looked at him. I met him. I went to an event in Houston last year and had the pleasure of meeting him. He's the only honest candidate for president in Nigeria, just like Khan.
Yes, like Khan, right. So because Nigeria has actually gone through, like Pakistan, gone through bouts of military rule, and the level of corruption there is massive. Pakistan, and I don't want to say fortunately, but it's a relative fortunately, our levels of corruption have not gone to the levels that Nigeria has been through. Our military government, we've been through 4 bouts of military rulers. Imran is coming into power. Jeff has completely changed the mindset of the people of Pakistan. They're very aware. Social media has devastatedly destroyed, all government-sponsored narratives about, who's good and who's bad. The 6-year-old kids know what corruption is. Literally 6-year-old kids
I've
will
seen,
talk about corruption.
yeah, I saw a video.
Yes,
But
yes. So there is a lot of hope, but the tragedy is that the classic fascist, violent crackdown on human rights, which involves illegal abductions, illegal imprisonment, custodial torture, torture and physical abuse against women. This is a new law that
it breaks my heart. Yeah.
Jeff, that's a new law that the Pakistani army has fallen to. We were never exposed to this kind of dehumanizing volume. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about it. I really want to understand, why does the state use rape as a method of putting people into submission?
Well, I'm not sure I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure why maybe rape specifically, but the totalitarian approach to control is to beat somebody over the head with a hammer. Whereas in democracy, we use propaganda.
Propaganda.
We use mind control.
Mind control. Yes.
We try to help change minds.
Yes.
Okay.
Classical conditioning, you guys call it, right?
Exactly. So, as far as the rapes are a violent crime, and it just breaks my heart because I just stop and I think, what would it be like if my loved one had such an experience?
I think it's also got to do with our culture, Jeff. In our culture, the woman is held, contrary to conventional belief. The woman's place in a traditional society like Pakistan is very prominent. There's great sanctity of what we call the veil of the woman and the wall of the house. In Urdu, it's called chadar and char diwali. Chadar is the cloak that the woman wears over her head, and diwar means wall, means there's a great sanctity for the respect of the woman's shawl which she wears over us, and the walls of the house that protect the sanctity and the privacy of an individual. This is a centuries old tradition that has been broken to bits because people's houses have been entered into in manners completely unseen, unheard of. Women who've been picked up, and so I think the reason they did that is to break that last barrier, the mental barrier that we had of sanctity
of women.
Pardon me?
Of the sanctity of women.
And the sanctity of the women, and the last bastion of decency.
I think you're right. It makes sense to me. I'm learning the culture. Since I've gotten involved, it's been quite a learning process. So it's an utter insult to women, to rape them. So yes, I think you're onto something there.
Good. Jeff, listen, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's been great. I learned a lot from you. I talk with people all day, and I'm still learning. Maybe I'll check in with you in a while.
Please.
And let you know where I'm at.
Please. You have my number. You have my email. You're more than happy to anytime, Jeff. Please get in touch. If I ever come Fort Lauderdale, we'll grab a Starbucks somewhere.
Oh, that would be great. That's great. And let's hope for let's hope for peace.
I think using a military analogy, Jeff, I used to be in the military. Left as a captain, but served there for 7 years. So there's the war, there's the campaign, and then there's the battle, right?
Mhm.
So we've been fighting this war against fascism in Pakistan for a long time, and we've been losing. When I say we, mean the people of Pakistan. And then we've had various campaigns. So this current campaign, which was launched by Imran Khan, it's a mental campaign of this fight for democracy. Started maybe when he set up his party 27 years ago, kind of peaked when he became prime minister 3.5, 4 years ago
Mhm.
in 2018, and has reached the last phase of the campaign after he was ousted in the last 12 months of this totalitarian fascist military backed government and military rule in Pakistan. So there are just a few more battles to be fought, and the hardest battles, and the toughest, and the most vicious, and the most violent battles are to be fought, because it's really the end of one order or the other. And the order that has been around for 75 years of Pakistan's existence is the one whose existence is at stake,
Mhm.
because the new order is the people, is democracy, is human rights, is equality, is justice. So it's going to be a tough one. I think there's going to be massive violence, but as sure as I am of my death, I'm sure that the people of Pakistan, the rule of law, will win, and you and I will be talking about this new free democratic Pakistan sooner than you and I expect.
I hope so.
So Jeff, once again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jeffrey Guterman, you can see these are the voices that you have also reached out to, the letters that you have been sending out to congressmen, senators, has raised the level of interest in Pakistan. Therefore, people like Jeff were able to access information in the media. My interview with Chomsky just happened chance, and he came across it. And being a Dr. Chomsky fan, so all these things, they're all candles in the storm that we need to keep on lighting and lighting and lighting till there is a bushfire, there's a bonfire, and then people see that there's something wrong there. Let's go and see what there is. And we have to continue this struggle. Jeff, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We hope and pray for a free, democratic Pakistan. Thank you. Pakistan Zindabad. Pakistan